Fakakta Comedy Funhouse Network.
In a world where we hate everything except for the things we love, there's the Low Blow Podcast. So join us every week as me, Adam Z,
me, Dave Rowan,
and Chris and Naomi.
She might be naked.
I'm naked.
Fill your ear holes with unbiased reviews of movies, TV shows, comic books, anything Florida does, and basically the rest of the internet, right here in the FCF Network. So please check out all your favorite downloading podcasting apps for us, the Low Blow Podcast. Appropriately inappropriate.
MHOG.
And we're back. Welcome to the MHOG Podcast. I'm your host, Rockin' Steve. That's my American like radio host, like 1950s voice that I sometimes do when I have to host. Anyway, I'm not Rockin' Steve, obviously. I'm Adam. And for the second Kyle was on the last one, so I guess but neither Wayne nor Rum are on this episode. And so this is going to come out on International Podcast Day. I don't know if that's a fancy thing. I don't know if people actually celebrate that, because there's a lot of holidays that they make up, like National Hot Dog Day. There's a National Clown Day. I don't know. But so I brought on someone that I've promised to bring on this show for a very long time. He and his let's call them minions have had me on their shows multiple times. Welcome, Nic Branch.
Well, howdy do. As you can hear, I'm very British. This is my British DJ voice, and we like to try and talk eloquently in the UK. Of course we don't. Well, I mean, some people do. I mean, I obviously don't. I couldn't keep that pretense up for that amount of time. That was too much effort. Do your DJs is the attempt to put people to sleep or to make them horny? Because I'm not really sure what was. You know what? We do have, and I'm sure you've got them there as well. We do have easy listening radio stations. Oh yeah. So we've got a really famous station called Magic, which most people actually refer to as tragic, because all it does is it plays like love songs, or very soulful kind of stuff that would kind of get you to sleep. And the DJs on there, there are different DJs, but you could not name which DJ you're listening to because they all have the same monotone voice. It's pretty incredible. Even the women. Yeah, I think all easy listening stations have that. My cousin was actually, he had a name. I don't remember what his DJ name was, but he worked on one of those, and it did. He was on the midnight shift, but it didn't really matter. No one cared. They just want you to play Kenny G or Celine Dion. I don't know if Kenny G. I don't know if Kenny G and Celine Dion have the same following over there in
in the old country?
Oh, well, Celine Dion definitely was massive around the same kind of time. I mean, it's not particularly big now, but yeah, like that mid to late 90s, huge. And Kenny G, yeah, he was like early 90s. He was like the kind of thing to listen to. Yeah, but I missed all that. I was a bit too young, thankfully.
I don't think you're that much younger than me. You're...
No. Well, yeah, but I don't. You know, what I mean is that it was. It seemed to be a bit more of an eclectic. It was popular, but it seemed to be like older adults listen to Kenny G. That's what I was kind of getting at. Not that you wouldn't know, just that the target audience seems to be like parents and grandparents.
So yeah, okay. So your parents like Kenny G and you liked Hanson. I gotcha.
No, I was listening to Snow.
As in Informer?
Yeah. Well, that's the only song he had, wasn't it?
I think he had a whole album, I would assume.
Oh, no, he did. Sorry, okay, he did have a whole album, but I think 2 people bought it.
Probably.
Yeah.
But so you used to just do a Disney podcast. Now you basically have your own network.
That makes me sound like some kind of megalomaniac. Yeah, I mean, pardon. Well, pardon the pun, but we did kind of branch out. So, yes, we started doing a Disney podcast called DisAfterDark, and the main reason for doing that was in the UK there was a few Disney podcasts that you got. I mean, nowhere near as many as you kind of find out of America. But they were all really saccharine and, you know, how great Disney was. And, you know, they didn't suck. You know, even the stuff that sucked didn't really suck. And it was just all a bit soft and, you know, la-di-da. And so a guy who I met through another Disney podcast said he had this idea for doing a more mature, grown-up Disney podcast. And so we started that together. But when we first started it, we used to swear a lot because we wanted to make sure it sounded really kind of adult, and it came across as a bit false. So whilst we do swear, it seems to be more natural now, rather I think at the beginning it used to be, let's get the swears in so people know that this is supposed to be for adults. But over time, the format's changed slightly. We've got some more people on board. The original, you know, host of the show, who came to me about it at the beginning, he decided he didn't want to do it anymore, and I kind of took it over accidentally. But since that time that I did take it over, we have added a Universal Studios podcast, so we talk about Universal theme parks, and also a pop culture podcast where we kind of talk about anything. And you've listened to it for a long time, and so you know that even though it's a Disney podcast, we used to really go off tangents sometimes and not talk about Disney for long periods. So we now have an excuse and a podcast to do where we can just wax lyrical about whatever we want.
Well, I don't know that that's entirely. I mean, not to say that you shouldn't do the show. I mean, do what you want. But I don't know that it's entirely necessary. I've had conversations with Hunter of UUOP and some other show. He does. He does a bunch of shows too. But I think, you know, you mentioned like there's a ton of American podcasts that talk about Disney theme parks and Universal. Well, not so much Universal. Universal's pretty limited in what's available. But the problem is like when I first started listening, because I didn't realize that was a thing. Like I knew about podcasts, but I didn't realize there were theme park podcasts, which now I know there's literally a theme. Like a podcast about just about anything you can imagine. There are like sewing circle podcasts these days, and I listened to like a few of them when I first found out about it, and I was like, this is fucking terrible. Like yeah, okay, like this podcast has all kinds of information that I wouldn't know because they have a bunch of cast members that'll tell them things, but I'm falling asleep at the wheel listening to them.
Yeah.
And I think the mistake that a lot of theme park podcasts make is that they assume that no one gives a shit about them. They're just like, oh, you're just here to hear like the latest news and rumors. Look, if you're that interested in it, you don't need to listen to a podcast for that. I mean, it's a convenient aggregate for it. But I can go find out all the same stuff just by Googling and knowing what websites to look at, you know?
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well, I mean, some podcasts you get daily editions of. So some of the bigger theme park podcasts will do daily editions. So they're quite current, but some of the other podcasts I listen to would record maybe 2 episodes a month. So by the time they put their content out, you were well aware of whatever news and rumors had been breaking, because if you're interested, as you say, you're going to kind of you're going to Google it. And the other thing as well is, and I think where we try to make our podcast a little bit different, and I know you kind of do similar stuff on yours, is that because there's so much content out there, and because especially I suppose in the theme park space, if you were just doing a show where you're just literally talking about news that's happening and that's really what you're talking about, there's so many different podcasts you can listen to. I hardly listen now. There's a few Disney podcasts that I still listen to, or theme park podcasts that I listen to, because if you listen to one, you'll hear the same stuff on one that you'll hear on another. There's nothing that really distinguishes one from another in a lot of cases. Whilst I think what we try and do, because people are choosing to listen to you, is try and make it a bit more personal. And I think a lot of podcasts don't bother to do that. And they're really interchangeable if they don't, because they all have pretty much the same message to say.
Yeah. I do think a lot of what makes, I would say almost all of what makes a podcast work is the personalities of the people involved and what they bring to the table. And, I had mentioned to you, well, not just you, but to on your Facebook group a while back that, because y'all had to add like a lot of new people to sort of get things, I guess, like steady again once y'all lost some members. And, it started off kind of rough, as things always do, but over time, like because y'all have got like, 7 people at this point?
Not quite as many as that. We've got about 6, I think. Hang on, let's see. We've got 2 Pauls, a Craig, a Chris and Amanda, myself. Yeah, so 6. And I suppose, the original host is still around, but he might make an appearance once a year or so. So I suppose technically there's 7 of us. But I think when you've got a roster that big, and the reason for us kind of expanding that much is, what it does mean is that if somebody's on holiday, if somebody's not well, if somebody can't make a recording, then there's still going to be enough people, you hope, to put together a podcast episode. The problem I've got is that I am still pretty much the driving force for 2 of those podcasts. So if I'm not there to do it, or if I don't try and get everyone together to do it, it probably won't happen. And so the Universal podcast, we've now kind of given over to Amanda, because Amanda was kind of like the Universal expert. And when we decided that we wanted to try and do a Universal podcast, I made it quite clear that it was going to be another lot of responsibility, and I wasn't comfortable leading with that, because I felt I was already doing a lot of stuff already. And she's proved herself, and she's good, and she's driven for it, and she's excited for it. So we were happy to let her kind of lead the way on that. So that's something that's kind of been going on in the background for the last few months, and that's kind of really starting to take off now. But you're right, and I think another thing that makes us different, especially to your podcast, is we've never all been in the same room. And in fact, I've not actually met 4 of the people I podcast with, ever.
Okay, so you met Craig once. I assume it was one of the Pauls that you met?
Yeah, so I originally met Craig and the Paul number 1 and Paul number 2, so Boniface and Dolan. We met at a Disney convention that was in the UK. very low convention. I mean, it's nothing like an American convention. It was in a small room, probably about 100 people there, over a couple of days. And we talked and stuff, and it was nice. But at that point, Craig wasn't involved in the podcast at all. He was just a listener. And Paul Dolan would join the podcast probably about 6 episodes later. We had him on as a guest after the meeting there, but he didn't become part of the team until a little bit after. So he's been there quite early on as well. But because of where we live in the country, like across the country, although obviously England is nowhere near as big as America by any stretch, we just still haven't managed to get together. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but we put out a podcast yesterday of audio of the first day or so of me and Craig in Orlando. So it had gone from me meeting, and I met, because Craig works in London for a few hours, a couple of days a week. I've seen him a couple more times outside of the podcast, but we went to Orlando together, and that was the first time that we got to spend days together.
So are you leaving your wives now?
Luckily, it worked out, because it could have got quite messy. But that was good. So there's now audio of that out there, and we've become really good friends because of it.
So are you leaving your wives now? And
I would. I think he'd find it hard to. So I think we're going to have to keep it completely platonic. That was his fear, actually. When we got to the hotel on the first night we were there, and we was checking in, when they come around to check me into the hotel, we had separate beds, but when they did, the checkout clerk said, "Oh, so can I take your name, please?" I said, "Yeah, it's Nick." And he said, "Oh, same surname." At that point, I think the penny dropped that the whole weekend people would think we was a gay couple. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
That's odd. I have had that happen. However, and this might be something the two of you might want to think about. The only time that's ever happened is when I was with a gay friend. Like I went on a cruise with someone that I had known since I was 16 or whatever, and he's I don't think he's I've been told he's flamboyant. I don't really see it, I mean, I can see him being gay, but anyway. But we went on a cruise together, and it was separate beds. But if you've never been on a cruise, they have like group dining, and so I would go have the nightly meal, and he didn't want to be around other people, and most of those people were couples, and they would say, where's your friend? And I was like, I don't fucking know what, like, But whatever. So you might, I don't know. Maybe I might want to consider. Maybe it's like that old Bonnie Raitt song. Let's give them something to talk about. Maybe I haven't figured things out yet.
I think I do give off that vibe a little bit. I think that's just how I am.
You know what?
I don't care.
It was the Orlando Magic jersey. Frankly.
Jersey. That did get a lot of attention, actually. My 18-year-old Orlando Magic jersey, yeah. I think it's the colours. But and I was showing skin, so there's that as well. But no, I just think in general, I think sometimes you can give off that that kind of vibe. I wouldn't mind. I used to wear eyeliner, I used to wear black lipstick, used to have my nails painted, no problems with that at all. But now I don't do any of those things. Now people think I'm gay, so what can you do?
You were much straighter as a 9 Inch Nails fan.
You know what? No, none of that at all, actually. I was never really into the early noughties, like Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, that kind of scene, when that all kind of started to break through. But no, it was a few years afterwards. I can't even remember why I started wearing eyeliner, but I did. It was very short-lived. Like, the eyeliner lasted quite a while. Painting nails and dyeing my hair and black lipstick was very. That didn't last very long at all. But the eyeliner kind of went for a good couple of years if I was going out. But and the thing is, what's terrible about that is I used to never think anything of it, like putting a bit of eyeliner on. But you used to get people get beaten up for that, just for doing it. I never really thought about it in that way, but I think I was quite lucky, actually. I never got attacked. But I think it's sad that you can't do stuff like that without people wanting to kick the shit out of you.
I mean, I can't speak for your country, but I mean, people just kind of do what they want here.
Yeah, I think, and I think, to be honest, because of where I was in the country, I probably did get away with it. But certainly in little towns and stuff.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess certain parts of the country here, I don't know if you get beaten up these days, but people aren't necessarily. I don't know. People don't really want their lives, like their little world, changed. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. But
no, I think you maybe what you're kind of getting at is that if people are, if it's something that they're not used to or something that's not the status quo, then people can take offence to it or get scared of it, and therefore react badly to it.
There's some of that. I think what a lot of it is because I'm this way. I'm very old-fashioned. Sometimes I just want to be left the fuck alone. Like, I don't really want to stop you from doing whatever you're doing. Like you want to wear an eyeliner, you want to cut your dick off. I mean, it's your life. I'm not gonna.
Would you want to do that?
I mean, a lot of people are doing it.
Like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. I see what sense. Yeah.
In the words of Mel Brooks, everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it. Anyway, it's very, very obscure reference. But no, I don't really care. I just don't want people bugging me. Like, like go do it over there. And I used to have a friend who was a drag queen, my friend Jack, and Jack was awesome, and we never had any problems. He got a little weird when he would get drunk. Like he never hit on me or anything like that, but he gave off kind of a psychotic vibe when he was drunk. But he was a drag queen, a pretty convincing one actually. And I was always like, look, dude, like, I don't care that you do that. Just, like, not more hanging out. Like, I mean, I know you got friends that like, are cool with that. I'm just not one of them. I'm sorry. Like, it was never really an issue. Anyway. That's enough of this.
I remember going to like a gay club. I used to go out with a girl who had a gay brother, and it was the first time I'd really hung around gay people because we're talking like early millennium, and I mean, gay people were kind of accepted more at that time, but it was still something that was a little not taboo. That makes it sound wrong, but it wasn't as
it wasn't
open as it is now, yeah. And so one night they said, "Oh, we'll go to Soho, really famous part of London where there's a lot of gay bars." And I was all prepared to, have somebody chat me up, and I had my lines as to, say, thank you, but I'm actually not gay. And I was wasting the whole night for someone to try and chat me up, and no one chatted me up, and I felt like a failure because a gay guy didn't chat me up. I was like, well, what's wrong with me? But, yeah, I'm over it now. It's all right.
Maybe you shouldn't have walked in the room and yelled out, "I don't want any fags touching me." I feel like that was probably...
yeah, that might have been what let me down, yeah.
Now, did you know that Disney had... I don't think it was officially a gay club, but everybody knew it was the gay club at Pleasure Island?
No. What one was that? Or do I have to guess?
I mean, you can guess if you want, if you remember, like, all the clubs from Pleasure Island. It's been many a year.
I remember. Yeah, I remember the Adventures Club. Obviously, there was like a '70s club, wasn't there? Was it like called Tracks or something?
It was called 8 Tracks. Yeah.
8 Track. Yeah, was it that one?
No.
Oh.
By the way, it's just occurring to me now. Like, we're almost on 10 years, because I think it was 2008 when they shut down the last club at Pleasure Island. Oh.
I think it was a little bit after that, because the first time I went was 2007, and I think some of them were still open in 2010. but
I could be
that
wrong, but
might have been one or two left. They were. I mean, they definitely weren't all open. But I think the Adventures Club was probably the last one to go, wasn't it?
No, the Adventurers one was shut down before they even decided to shut down Pleasure Island. It was a big deal.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, because
Okay.
everyone loved that club just because of the animatronics and all that. But no, I mean, I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty positive the last club to go down was what was it called? Oh my God, this is driving me nuts. It was the main club. It was like the modern, with all the modern music, and it was, like the rave club. Oh man, this is gonna drive me crazy. But I was my brother and I had evacuated for a hurricane, Hurricane Gustav, in 2008, and I'm pretty sure that was not long. But I think part of the reason I wanted to go was to go to that club one last time before they shut it down. But I could be wrong. But anyway,
No, you may not be. I mean, I take it you've been to Disney Springs.
Yes. Let me think. Was everything open at the last time I went? Because I went in March.
Oh,
Yeah.
it must have been.
Yeah,
or
I
certainly
think everything was open, but one of the garages.
It's not. Well, it's not. I mean, it's not all open now. But I mean, I went there on my like before we went to the airport to come home, because the stupid thing, I don't know if you know what Craig was doing and what I joined him for. We went to Orlando for 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Now, bearing in mind the flight from the UK is 8.5 hours, to go to Orlando for 4 days is pretty ridiculous. But the last few hours before we come home, we went to Disney Springs. It was the nearest we could get to Disney without our wives trying to divorce us. And that was the first time I'd obviously been to Disney Springs since it became that. And I thought it was quite nice, but it just didn't seem to have the same personality. It seemed to just be, well, for some of it just seemed to be a bit of an upmarket outdoor mall.
Well, that is what
like
it
one of
is.
the outlet malls or something.
I don't know how much exploring you've done outside of like Disney and Universal itself, but there are several. I don't know if y'all have them there, but they're called outlet malls. Which
yeah, I've been to a few. Yeah.
Okay, well, so there's a bunch of those not far from Disney and Universal, and so when they decided to change Downtown Disney, it was to compete. Disney Springs is designed to take business from the outlet malls, and if you look at the new main area where Pleasure Island used to be, and the bus stop as well, like it's very clear that that's what it's meant to be, is an outlet mall. But
yeah, it looks it. I mean, I don't get it though, because surely the whole reason, and the reason why I went to the outlet malls before, is that you go there because stuff's cheap. Whilst this part, like Disney Springs, all of those, or a lot of those shops are upmarket and expensive.
Yeah, I don't know that it really is going to make a difference, but as far as Disney is concerned, it's more restaurants and more opportunities for people to spend money. So
true. But other than Jock is it Jock Lindsay's?
Yeah.
The Indiana Jones bar. I mean, other than that, I mean, everything just felt a bit. I mean, it was nice, but it just didn't have that same appeal that I think it used to when it was Downtown Disney.
No.
And the bit where like Disney Quest is and all of that is almost untouched.
Yeah.
That's. I know they're taking down Disney Quest now, and they're just, Cirque du Soleil's going, but they've knocked down some restaurants to replace them with new restaurants. The shops on the other side are identical to the ones that were there 10 years ago.
No, that's all true. I mean, I really don't know what they're doing with all that, but the gay club was called Mannequins.
Okay.
When what was the first year you went?
2007.
It was closed by then.
Okay.
So it's okay. So you went to Disney Springs. Did you take note of where Morimoto was, the sushi joint?
No.
Okay. Well, no. You know where the pub is, right?
Which one? What, Raglan Road or?
Raglan Road, yeah.
Yeah.
So across from there is Morimoto, and Morimoto is the building. Well, I mean, I think they tore it down and rebuilt, built a new one. But that's that building had been like just sort of empty for probably a good 9 years or something like that, and that used to be Mannequins, which was a gay club, and it had a revolving dance floor. And I only went once when I was in the Disney College program, but I was there with some people, and my immediate roommate in the college program was like, "Hey man, I gotta go to the bathroom," and I was like, "Okay." I was like, "I don't know why the fuck you're telling me that." And he's like, "Come on, dude." I'm like, "Why do you need me to go with you to the bathroom?" He's like, "Dude, there's gonna be fucking gay guys in there." I'm like, are you under the impression that like as soon as they walk in, there's like some dude in like is gonna start playing Blue Oyster Cult and wearing leather straps and go fresh meat? So I literally had to like follow him into the bathroom because he wouldn't stop nagging me, and I was just like, "All right, dude, do your business. This is now weird because I'm fucking standing around looking at gay guys holding their dicks, which is the gayest thing possible, Well, not the gayest, I guess.
No, but it's up there, I suppose. Yeah. But I suppose that's it. I suppose the mentality is, especially if you're not used to being around gay people, is if he's attracted to men, he'll be attracted to me because I'm a man. When that's not how. In the same way that you can look at a woman and find her attractive, and you look at another woman and not find her attractive in the slightest.
Well, the old theory was that if you're a homophobe, there's one of two things: either you were secretly gay yourself and you just hadn't admitted it yet, or you just thought you were so hot that everybody wants to fuck you. And let's be honest, it's not the latter. It's definitely not the latter. For most people, no. unless you're Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, it's probably not the latter.
Yeah, well, especially when he's wearing that fanny pack with the turtleneck sweater. I mean, that's does it get more hot than that?
You know what? I mean, maybe not in 1993 or whenever when that first picture was taken, but the fanny pack and the sweater, the turtleneck, ain't holding anybody back these days.
Well, I mean, you are a big fan, not in that way, but you are a big fan of The Rock.
There's an ongoing joke that I'd let The Rock have me if he wanted, but the problem with that joke...
Let's be honest, you wouldn't have much say.
Well, that's the problem with the joke, is that like if he really wanted me, I'd just, but I always tell people, I'm like, look, it's not gay if The Rock makes love to you. It's just common sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good step. I think I used to go to college with a friend, and he completely straight. Women loved him. He was a bit of a chick magnet and a bit full of himself. But he said, if Pierce Brosnan tried it on with me, I would go gay for Brosnan. And his rule was that there must be one person of the opposite sex that you would actually be gay for. I think a lot of people do have that, actually, to be honest. Not that you probably act on it, but you'd probably have some odd feelings if you encountered that person.
Huh. I could say, you know what? Brosnan post Thomas Crown affair, yeah.
Yeah, this would have been like 99, 2000, so yeah. Prime Brosnan.
I saw what he did to Rene Russo. I can go with that. Speaking of movies, you're I assume that's why you developed the last podcast. Everybody's got one, because you love to talk about movies.
Movies are, have always been quite a big passion of mine, actually. Even though I say that, there's lots of really popular films that people love to talk about that I've never seen. So, for example, on the plane to Orlando last week, I watched Blade Runner for the first time.
I still haven't seen that.
But see, the reason why I'd only just seen it that time was because every single time I've tried to watch it, I fell asleep.
Yeah, fair enough.
And having sat through it all now, I can understand why I fell asleep.
I mean, we all have those movies, though. The ones that I get the most shit about are, in fact, last night I was with people who regularly listen to the podcast know who Squirrels is. And she listens. Hi, Squirrels. We were having dinner together, and for whatever reason, The Princess Bride came up, and I was like, I've never seen that. And as soon as she starts to open her mouth, and just like you did, I'm just like, stop. Yeah, I know. I've heard it. I don't care. And by the way, I'm taking this one to my grave. And she's like, no, we're going to watch The Princess Bride. I was like, we're really not.
Well, look, I've got some. So here's some things. I had very weird parents. I say had, they're still alive, but they're basically dead to me. And I remember when I was about 5 or 6, The Goonies was coming on TV. And I mean, the thing people will never understand now, so like 20-year-olds now will never understand, is that when a film came out at the cinema, if you didn't catch it when it was out at the cinema, you had to wait years to be able to watch it at home.
Right,
because
it came out
you'd either have to, well, you could possibly rent it, but even renting it might take a year for it to come out on VHS or whatever, or you'd have to wait for it to come on TV, which could take 2, 3, 4 years easy. Right. And I remember they were advertising The Goonies coming on. And I was like, oh wow, that looks great. And they was like, oh no, it's stupid. You're not watching that. And there's lots of films like that in the 80s that weren't violent or anything like that. I mean, he let me watch RoboCop for fuck's sake. But lots of films that a lot of people my age grew up watching, and I knew nothing about. And when I got together with my now wife, she mentioned something about The Goonies, and I said, you know what, I've never seen it. And the relationship almost ended there and then. Saying I've made up for it a lot. I mean, I've watched The Goonies a hell of a lot now, and the same with The Princess Bride. It's another one that I never saw, but I rate it a lot, and I think I've only seen half of it, but I think The Princess Bride is probably the 80s equivalent of Stardust in terms of tone, that kind of thing.
Interesting. I'm a big fan of Stardust. Yeah, I'm a big Matthew Vaughn fan.
But I, like you said about Taking That to the Grave, I've never listened, and it's not movie related, but I've never listened all the way through to Stairway to Heaven, and I'm not going to either.
Well, fair enough, I guess. I mean, my whole thing is, I hate it when people overhype a movie, and everybody goes, no, but you can't overhype whatever the movies are talking about. I'm like, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Like, there's no accounting for the expectation when you're like, this is my favorite movie of all time. This is the best movie we'll ever see, because when you go into that and then most of the movie is just okay.
Do you know what I think's... I know I completely agree with you there, because I was quite lucky in that when I saw The Princess Bride, which was probably only about 10 years ago or so, it was my best friend's film. Like, it was the film he enjoyed the most, and he said to me, like... you're going to like this film. I was like, oh. And luckily I did. But there's nothing worse than watching a comedy and you're watching with someone who loves that film and they're waiting for you to laugh at the bits and you're just sat there completely stony-faced.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of have to watch it by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I get there's that one. I get shit from guys over Scarface because I've never seen Scarface.
I've never seen Scarface. No interest.
And it's always like, you're not a real guy unless you've seen Scarface. I'm like, what the fuck ever. I mean, I've seen Die Hard. Like, that's more of a good movie than Scarface.
Best Christmas film ever.
I'm really more partial to Long Kiss Goodnight, but you know. I mean, I love Die Hard. I'm just saying, like, when I'm looking for Christmas films, I go for Long Kiss Goodnight. That and Love Actually. That's my barometer. That's my...
Really?
Yeah. But and then the other one that people mostly give me shit for is, okay, I've seen the third Godfather movie. Never seen the first two.
Neither have I. And I went through a phase of buying like loads of box sets when I had like loads of money, when I had loads of disposable income before I lived by myself. I moved out my parents and had other responsibilities. I used to buy so many films, and I bought that trilogy, and I've never watched it.
So is it on DVD or is it on like VHS?
DVD. Yeah, DVD.
So technically, you could watch it any time.
Absolutely, just can't be bothered.
Well, the funny thing is you got kids now. The funny thing is like the third one is considered like, I don't know if it's considered a piece of shit, but compared to the first two, which are people argue are like two of the best films of all time, like it's considered pretty bad. And so whenever I bring up like I've seen the third one, people get like kind of irate, and I'm always like, look, the third one was on. I didn't seek it out. It was on, and I sat and watched it. I couldn't even tell you what happened in it, but there's just certain movies, and I'm just like, look, there's a lot of movies. I can't see all of them, and to be honest with you, The Princess Bride doesn't interest me. Even though I love Carrie Elwes, doesn't interest me that much. You know, I'm much more interested in seeing Kingsman the first chance I get.
Well, you know what? My wife went to see that opening night. She was a massive fan of the first Kingsman. She actually went to see, she saw it with her mum the opening day of the first Kingsman, and saw it with me like 2 days after. So she was really hyped to see it, and she come back from the cinema that night, and she was like, "It's rubbish." And I was like, "What do you mean it's rubbish?" It's like, it's terrible. I was like, "It can't be terrible. It's a Kingsman movie." I think it's got a bit more of a mixed reception compared to the first one, but I'm still really excited for it, even being told that.
I've heard good things about it. I don't know anybody personally that's seen it, but I've heard it's. I mean, I don't know. But I've yet to see a Matthew Vaughn film that wasn't pretty close to, as close as anybody gets to perfect. It's, he directed Kick-Ass, which if you've never read the book Kick-Ass is a piece of shit. Like it's one of the most puerile, it's just utter garbage. And to watch that movie, it's just like, oh my God, like it's literally like somebody went into your toilet and took a piece of shit and made a steak out of it, and it tasted really good.
I'm not familiar with the original, so like the original work, so I don't
ever.
know.
If you've only seen the movie, you're good.
Yeah.
You never.
Yeah.
And that's why when Matthew Vaughn didn't go back for Kick-Ass 2, and the writer of the book, Mark Miller, came out and said, "Well, the second one's exactly like Kick-Ass 2." I was like, I'm out. I read Kick-Ass 2. I'm so fucking out. It's not even funny. Because Kick-Ass 2 is worse than the original Kick-Ass.
Oh, well, I mean, and the film obviously the same way. I mean, I just can't understand how they misjudge stuff like that. I remember I got really hyped up for Sin City 2. I really liked the first Sin City film. I didn't hate the sequel, but considering it had like the same director and everything like that, you just thought, how have you ballsed it up? Like, you just had to do the same stuff pretty much again, and you've just done it subpar.
I don't know.
At least with Kick-Ass 2 had a different director, so, there was an explanation there, but,
I don't know. That movie had been stuck in, like, development hell for a while. I never actually even saw the second one, just because I liked the first one when it came out, but I mean, after a few years, like, there's certain movies that come off as brilliant when you first see them, and then like a year or two later you're like, I don't really care if I ever see that again. And Sin City's one of those for me. That's my relationship with Christopher Nolan, pretty much. Oh, you don't want to get me started on him.
Huh?
You don't want to get me started on him. I'm not a Nolan fan at all.
Well, the thing is, right, I remember when Memento came out, and it was at a very limited run in London, so I didn't get a chance to see it, but I bought it the first chance I had to get it on DVD. And I thought, that's great. And I made a special trip to go and see Insomnia when that came out, and I enjoyed that. But once he started doing Batman films, I was just, I was saying that, actually, that's a lie. Batman Begins, I did actually really enjoy. But his work after that was terrible. And I remember going to see Inception, and I went to a preview screening of it. I remember walking out going, wow, that was a great film. And then I bought it, or someone bought it for me for Christmas that year, and we watched it again, and I was like, how the hell did I rate this film? Because it's terrible. Like visually, he's creative, and there was some great effects in it, but the story's absolute garbage.
My best friend, or one of my best friends, The Hustle, whose birthday is today, he once explained it like this: like, The Dark Knight is technically a better film than Avengers, but if I'm sitting around one day and I feel like watching a movie, I can pretty much put on Avengers at any time. With The Dark Knight, I kind of need to think about it, and I have to be in the right mood to even consider it. But more often than not, it's probably going to be a pass. And, like, for me personally, that's 100%. I've literally only seen The Dark Knight once. And it's not that I thought it was a bad film. I thought it was a fairly brilliant film for what it was. It wasn't much of a Batman movie, but it was a pretty great film. But I just don't have any interest in watching. And actually, Dark Knight Rises, as flawed as that movie is, like, I've seen that like probably 4 or 5 times because it's more entertaining, at least, than Dark Knight is. And Inception I saw and I was like, all right, like, that was fine, But then after that, like, my problem with it is, like, I feel like he's one of these guys that thinks everything has to be like dark and moody to have any depth, And you take a movie like, I mentioned Love Actually earlier, which is it's not really a story. It's a collection of
well, it's short stories. It's a collection of short stories, right, essentially.
Yeah, there's a word for it, but they all interconnect. But each one has its own mood, and some of them are darker. Some of them are kind of depressing. But that's the thing. And I'm not saying that Nolan doesn't have any depth. I'm just saying, like, I wish once the motherfucker would, like, direct a comedy. I'm just like, he needs a hug.
Well, I mean, I went to see Dunkirk. And again, I went to see that because I thought the trailer looked quite good for it. And I thought, maybe this will turn me around on Nolan. And my friend went to go and see it. Opening weekend, he's like, you've got to go and see it in IMAX. I didn't, and I regret it. Go and see it on the biggest screen you can. And I went to find it. I didn't see it in IMAX, but I did see it in a larger screen with a better sound system. And I came out and I just felt cold. Like, I couldn't believe that I was watching all these people in danger and I didn't give a shit if any of them survived. And that is purely down to, like, how you create those characters and what you do with them. Because, I mean, obviously, it may have been based on real events, but everyone in it was fictional. And I was shocked. I really thought I was going to like it, and I didn't. You're right. Though he does need to do something else because everything seems to be the same. And for some reason, I don't know why he feels that way, but he doesn't like Tom Hardy to talk. Or he certainly doesn't want you to hear Tom Hardy talk anyway. He's always trying to cover his mouth with something.
I don't know. I'm pretty jazzed about his Bane performance. I got a lot of material out of that.
I love doing a Bane impression as well. So yes, I understand what you're saying. Look, just because we're talking about comic book films, because I've talked about this with quite a few friends, but I'm not a fan of the DC universe. But I did go and see Wonder Woman this summer, and I wondered what your take was on that. If you'd seen it.
Well, so I should explain that I haven't seen Suicide Squad. That's the only... Well, and I've only seen half of Batman vs. Superman. I turned it off halfway through. Because
Don't blame you. Wish I had.
I was bored out of my mind. Well, yeah, I saw your discussion where you agreed to watch it end to end just to prove to Lee Malaby, who, for people listening, that's a friend of ours.
He got really, like, on that. So, like, the backstory to that and what you saw was that when I started, we recorded a podcast where basically him and Craig were like, you should watch it and all this. So I thought
Craig
I would.
Craig likes everything, though. Craig will love anything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, that's what upset me. Is he didn't say once he loved me during that whole Orlando trip. I was like, well, you love everything. But they encouraged me to watch it, so I did, and I started doing live commentary in our Facebook group in a message. I started doing live commentary about me watching Batman vs Superman, and Lee generally thought I was taking a piss, that I was trying to get a rise out of him or something because of how much I was hating on this film. And I was like, I'm really not doing it on purpose. I'm just being completely honest with how I feel. But yeah, I mean, I stuck it out, but I wish I hadn't. But Suicide Squad, I want to see. I'm interested in seeing it, but my expectations are fairly low.
Okay, and Squirrels is going to get mad at me for saying this. I haven't seen Suicide Squad. Initially, it was one of the few that I was excited about because I was like, okay, well, there's no expectations for Suicide Squad. They can do whatever they want. And then they made the announcement that the Joker is going to be in it, and I was like, all right, we're done. Like, and further, when they put out the images of Jared Leto as the Joker, the gangsta Joker,
yeah,
I was just like, no, like everything's wrong about this. And my whole thing was like, look, if you put the Joker in a Suicide Squad big budget movie, it's no longer a Suicide Squad movie. It's a movie where people want to see the Joker. So either the Joker's in the whole thing or people are going to be pissed off. Turns out people were pissed off because the Joker was barely in it, which is insane to me. Like, if the Joker's in a movie, it's a movie about the Joker. It's that simple.
The impression I got, though, was that was a creative decision during the filming or during the editing of that. I think he was supposed to be in it for longer.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of editorial stuff going on with that movie. But I will say this. If you do watch Suicide Squad, I do want you to go and find a animated movie called Assault on Arkham Asylum, which is without even having seen it's again, sorry, Squirrels, because she's going to be mad at me because she apparently loves Suicide Squad. Assault on Arkham Asylum is clearly more or less what they were basing the live action Suicide Squad movie on, but there's no chance it's anywhere as good. Assault on Arkham Asylum is a pretty amazing animated movie, and it has the Jokers in that too, actually, and used very appropriately. But so anyway, so I saw half of Batman vs Superman. The only thing that surprised me about that movie was how boring it was, and so I got halfway through that, and then I did see Wonder Woman, and I'd heard all the hype, including people I know. Some people saying, this movie's amazing. There were reviews saying it's the best superhero movie of all time, and I saw it, and I was like, it was good. I enjoyed it. I'd watch it again. I don't think I'd own it, but and also, it's a movie that's hyped for two reasons. Number one, it's the only DC Universe movie that has any tone shifts at all. Like, it's still pretty bleak, and most of the movie has the same Zack Snyder color palette, except for the first chunk of the movie, which in a way, like, shows that the director, Patty Jenkins, knew what she was doing, because she's like, look, this is paradise. So paradise is colorful and beautiful, and then you're seeing, like, war, and, like, so it's like, oh, okay, there's a director working on these movies who understands tone and, like, visuals and the context of it, which Zack Snyder does not. Sorry, does not. But, like, so the movie was hyped because, number one, they needed a DC movie that they could say, like, was actually good. Number two, and, because the people that are just like, the Marvel movies suck, the DC movies are rule, that kind of shit. And then there was, like, the whole thing of women or feminists who were like, see, when you put out a female superhero movie, it's so much better than blah, 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 whatever bullshit. Which, the funny thing about that to me is, the star obviously was a woman, Gal Gadot, and the director was a woman, Patty Jenkins, and nothing against either one of them, but the writer was a man. Alan Heinberg wrote it. Alan Heinberg, who's the producer of The OC, also wrote a pretty great Wonder Woman. It was supposed to be an ongoing series, but it ended up being a miniseries about 7 or 8 years ago. But it made me laugh because I was like, okay, I guess you I guess you needed a man to actually get this thing going. But the other thing is, like, no one was willing to admit how much they took from Captain America: The First Avenger. Like, there's like 3 scenes in that movie where I was like, I was in Captain America. I was in Captain America. Oh, that was definitely in Captain America. Like the,
it was a little bit like that South Park bit with the Simpsons.
Yeah,
where, like, the Simpsons
where they pointed out, you know, like, well, but although their point was that, like, ultimately everything's a remake of something else, but yeah, no, I mean, and look, I'm nothing to detract from it. It was a good movie, but, like, people are definitely overhyping it to the point where I remember when Comic-Con happened a couple of months ago, they announced that, like, the next movie would come out in 2019, and people were like, oh my god, they just announced when the movie was coming out. I was like, number one, they just announced a year. Number two, these movies tend to come out sequels every 2 years, so what the fuck are you excited about? like you could guess that. Like, I kind of figured...
Yeah, no one was going to think it was going to be 5 years away.
Right, and if it... I mean, they would be stupid because so far, I mean, Suicide Squad underperformed. Batman vs. Superman underperformed for what they were expecting it to do. God knows what Justice League is going to do. It's. I mean, they're pretty much diminishing returns on every movie, so Wonder Woman's kind of their only actual breakout success. So yeah, there's no chance of it coming out like Avatar sequels. You know, it's gonna come out relatively soon. In fact, if Justice League underperforms, I almost wonder if Warner Brothers is stupid enough to push up production on Wonder Woman. Because if Justice League underperforms, they're screwed. There's nothing they can do.
It's weird, isn't it? Because so my opinion on one was very similar to yours. I saw it after the hype train had departed the station, and I got out of there, and me and my friend had both watched it at different cinemas the same night, and we had a call after to discuss it, and both of us were like, yeah, it was all right, but where's all this hype come from? It's just like a decent superhero film. And also as well, I didn't like the liberties it took. So I took great offence at the World War I scene when she ran across the battlefield.
Okay.
Because that is actually an incident that happened in World War I. And I said, look, I'm not offended in terms of, like, you know, I didn't have, to my knowledge, any relatives that fought in that war or that particular battle itself, right? But can you imagine if they made a Captain America film where he was pulling people out of the World Trade Center on 9/11? That's what I likened it to. I know it's not the exact same thing, but you're taking a real-life event and putting a superhero in it.
Are you saying that because it was made by Americans, they don't have the... I don't know if respect is the word, but the proper understanding of the context of what they were doing?
I don't think that's stupid.
The reason I asked that is because, like, the reason no one would do the example that you gave is because in America, like, people still make the joke of 9/11. They make a 9/11 joke and go too soon. Like, we all understand, because, like, for most of it, it's within our lifetime, and we understand it in a proper context. Whereas Americans don't like Dunkirk. I don't know that many. I think more Americans saw the movie Dunkirk than knew anything or had even heard about what happened in Dunkirk. I'd heard the name of it before, but I had no idea what happened there.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know. I don't think it was done to insult, but I just think when you start putting superheroes into real life tragedies, and at the end of the day, you know, a massive war is a tragedy. You know, lots of people died, you know, when they didn't need to. Like, wars are often quite unnecessary. But I think when you do that, it sets a dangerous precedent. Because, you know, where do you take it? How far do you push it? But just in general, you know, even without that, I just thought it was a good film. But with Justice League coming out, I mean, when's it coming out in America? Is it November?
Yeah, I think it's going up against Thor 3.
Right, okay. Which is funny because I didn't like Thor 2 at all, but I'm looking forward to Ragnarok. But to me, like, everything I've seen for Justice League so far has looked pretty terrible. And Justice League should have been a big summer blockbuster. That should have been coming out in May or June. Putting it out that time of year, bearing in mind that Marvel can pretty much release a film any time of year and it's a big success, I think it's a massive risk, and I think it's going to backfire. I don't think it's going to be the big hit that they're hoping it will be.
I think at this, okay, so, I mean, I can't go into, like, there's like a lot of history that goes into, and I mean, it's only been a few years, but there's a lot of history that goes into, like, Warner Brothers decisions. And I can only, like, I know more about the history of Batman versus Superman than I do what they've decided with Justice League, but I do know that Justice League, a lot of the choices that they made are a reaction to what happened with Batman versus Superman. For one thing, Batman versus Superman they put in more money. Batman versus Superman cost $500 million. Like, that is an insane amount of money, and that's why Batman versus Superman, even though it made $1 billion, isn't considered like a huge success. Because in order for a movie to be considered a runaway success, it has to triple its budget.
Yeah.
It didn't do that. It made $1 billion just barely, and it didn't do it like the Avengers movies or Captain America Civil War did. Like, those movies make their, well, I don't know how much Civil War made, but the movies that made a lot of money, like, generally when they hit $1 billion, it happens pretty quickly. It took a couple of months for Batman versus Superman to make $1 billion. So with Justice League, I think they cut the budget down to manage expectations, and then I'm guessing what they looked at was the schedule of Disney movies, and thought, well, the best thing for them would have been to pull a Dark Knight or an Avatar and have it in December. But the problem is that Disney already thought of that, and Star Wars Episode 8 is coming out then, and they didn't want to go up against Star Wars Episode 8 for sure.
Yeah.
Then you look at what was coming out in the beginning of the year. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was coming out at the beginning of the summer, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 was a breakout hit. And so they knew how that was going to perform. It was going to do better than I don't know if it did or if it didn't, but they were expecting it to do better than the first movie did. Because usually that's how things go. Even if the sequel's not as good, usually it makes more money than the first movie. So they couldn't go up against that. So I think they just kind of looked at it and went, well, I mean, I actually quite like Thor: The Dark World for what it is, even if it's a massive misuse of Christopher Eccleston. But I think they kind of looked at it and went like, well, people didn't like the Thor sequel as much, so let's just have it come out roughly then, and just hope that, it has like a month before Star Wars, and that it makes its money and maybe keeps people out of Star Wars for a week or two. That's my guess. I don't really know. There's been a lot less leaks on Justice League than there were, like, on Batman versus Superman. So,
well, I think that's not true. And I don't know, but I mean, I think that's possibly down to the fact that they've been doing a lot of reshoots late in the day because of the situation that developed there.
Yeah, but that's
so possibly.
And I kind of corrected myself there because there has been news because of the reshoots. But here's the thing: like, people make a lot of noise about reshoots, and it's not that big a deal. Like, every major film does reshoots. And the reality is that I've heard different things about what Joss Whedon's doing, but the bottom line is there aren't enough reshoots in the world that Joss Whedon could have shot to remake, like, basically redo a movie. I mean, the editor is going to have more influence on how a movie works than Joss Whedon at that point. So if the movie's not good, or if it's just mediocre, and the other thing is, like, putting Joss Whedon in at that late an hour, if it had, like, I really think it was just to kind of make people think that it was more like Avengers, but the problem is, like, if he was doing what people think he was doing and basically redoing the movie, what would end up happening is it would be a worse movie, because then you'd have two conflicting voices, like, mishmashing this film, and you can see that a lot in a lot of movies. Like, I enjoyed the movie Baywatch, but the movie Baywatch had like 5 writers on it. And you can feel it in the scenes. Like, one scene is clearly going for this tone, the next scene is going for that. And there's no coherency. And anytime you see a movie that has like 5 or 6 writers, it's always ends up being like a very confused story. And in fact, I heard the other day, I was listening to a podcast where someone they were talking about the movie Catwoman with Halle Berry, and the person who was on the movie was saying, like, I think she said, like, at some point the movie had like 15 different writers, like, over the course of like 12 years or something like that.
Well, yeah, because it's another one, isn't it? I mean, that started off originally as a Michelle Pfeiffer vehicle.
Right. And I don't know.
That was the original plan.
I don't know what phases that went through, but apparently it had, like, I'm making up the number, but I think she had said something like 12 to 15 writers. But you feel, I mean, I didn't see that movie, so I can't say, but you feel it in a lot of these films. So, I don't know. I'll go see Justice League. The trailer looks okay. It doesn't really look like a Justice League movie, but it looks like a fun, silly action movie. And maybe it'll be enjoyable. You know, I can't go into it with any expectations. Like, I knew what I was getting out of Batman vs. Superman. I knew what Batman vs. Superman was going to be literally from the day they announced it. Like, it took me very little time to sort of suss out what they were doing. And the only thing I was wrong about was I had told people, I was like, this movie's not coming out. And I said, if it does, it'll come out a year later than they're saying it's coming out. And it turns out it came out a year later than they said it was going to come out. But I had originally said, like, the movie's not coming out.
I just think with, you know, not even with the Justice League thing, but, you know, if you look at the announcements Warner Brothers have made recently, so like they're going to make a Joker film with Scorsese, which is not going to be canon with, you know, with the films they're making now, like Justice League and Wonder Woman and stuff. It's going to be another time period, and they're talking about doing a Flashpoint film, and, you know, it just seems to me that they don't have any faith in the product. That no matter what you think about the Marvel films, they have a plan, and they stick to that plan.
Well,
they continue along.
That's what you have to understand about. So there's the difference between the Marvel films and the DC films is that Marvel is a small studio. It was bought by Disney, but it was a boutique company. Like, it was an independent film studio. They took out, you know, a multi-billion-dollar loan to do it, but that's how it started out. And Disney, when they buy products, if it's functioning, for the most part, they'll leave you alone. Like Pixar's just now starting to change, where they're adding more sequels than they never used to. But for the most part, they left Pixar alone because Pixar made money. Whereas they took a heavy hand in the Lucasfilm movies because George Lucas had pretty much ruined his reputation by then, and they knew that they couldn't keep going in the direction that the Lucasfilm movies were going. Now, whether or not they've drastically improved Star Wars, you know, it's up to different people to say, but so they left Marvel Studios for the most part alone. There's been some company politics, but they're still more or less making the same movies they were when they started. The difference being is that DC was owned by Warner Brothers since even before the first Batman. Well, not the Batman 66, but the 10.
No, but the 89 one, yeah.
Whereas Marvel is run by creative people who are looking to put out movies that based on concepts that they actually love. Warner Brothers is just getting people to do big budget superhero movies, and they don't really give a shit what it is. They don't really have any affection for it. They're just like, go put it out. And I think the reason that you're seeing things like the Joker movie, which I think they're saying is Leonardo DiCaprio is going to be the Joker, I want to say
that I think it's the Scorsese thing. I mean, they've not announced anything, but I think the smart money would be on another collaboration between the two of them.
Right. Well, I think the reason for that is that like they realize that they're having a lot of trouble with and it's funny because, you know, the DC TV stuff does way better than the Marvel stuff for the most part, or you know, maybe not way better, but they've had more success with it long term. But the movie stuff, they just can't get together, and I think they realize that they have a problem where, okay, they have all these icons that people actually know, but unless Batman is the main character and in the title, it's not making money. So what do they do, like, if Justice League fails? So I'm wondering if doing multiverse stuff is going to be their way of like, basically J.J. Abramsing the Justice League DCEU. If, like, Flashpoint won't be like, oh, you know, like, it would literally be like the DC New 52 comics, which Flashpoint was the miniseries that kicked that off. And for anybody who doesn't know about comics, it's not worth going into, but but it would be a way of, like, again, that's the simplest way to explain it, is pulling a J.J. Abrams with, like, Star Trek and, you know, soft reboot.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I get it. I think the thing is, like, I mean, a lot of people, even friends of mine, are kind of getting a bit sick of the other problem with Marvel films where they're all tied in together is that if you don't watch one, or you haven't watched a certain TV series, you might not get a reference in a film. You need to kind of try and keep on top of things. And I think, you know, that's quite tough in itself. But if DC then starts to try and do, like, multiverses and stuff like that, that's going to confuse the public even more than what they're doing at the moment.
Oh, I mean, I agree, but, you know, I mean, they already jumped into that problem with just having two Flashes. I mean, and it's the same character. It's played differently, but, like, if I don't know if you've ever read comics, but there's multiple Flash characters. Like, they could have just made him Wally West or something like that, although they're using Wally West in the TV show now, but they could have made him any number of other characters, and they're just like, no, we'll just have this Barry Allen, that Barry Allen, and, like, people who watch movies don't watch TV shows, right? You know, it's just...
Yeah.
But I don't think they care. I think they just figured, like, oh, it's Justice League, we need the Flash, put him in it, like, whatever, and for some reason they decided to make him the comedy relief, which is awkward.
Oh, I think they just done. I think they saw Quicksilver in the X-Men, the Fox X-Men films, and saw how that did, and thought, we'll just do that with Flash.
Oh, you think the Flash?
That seems like then.
Well, no, he can't because they're gonna have Flashpoint.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's odd. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not like they only have, you know, the Flash has only been portrayed by one person. It's the same with, you know, if the rumors to be believed, Green Lantern's going to be a different Green Lantern.
So here's the funny thing about that. I suggested that what they're basically doing. And I think they'll fuck it up. But what they're basically doing with Green Lantern is something that I suggested, like, literally 3 years ago. Basically what I said, so there are multiple Earth Green Lanterns. Hal Jordan's the most famous one. There's a famous black Green Lantern called John Stewart, no relation to the comedian.
The Daily Show guy, yeah.
And then there's, like, this brash Irish guy who's kind of an asshole called Guy Gardner.
Guy Gardner, yeah.
So what I suggested when the Hal Jordan, and granted, nobody from Warner Brothers, well, maybe somebody was listening because they ended up kind of doing it, or deciding to doing it, was that they make Green Lanterns into a Lethal Weapon movie. Like, literally use that tone, have a little bit of a comedic bent, but be kind of a hardcore crime thing where Hal Jordan gets killed. Like, he just dies, because Ryan Reynolds is doing Deadpool anyway. He's never going to fucking do Hal Jordan again. Why replace Hal Jordan? Why not just kill him? And then have, like, the Guardians appoint 2 new Green Lanterns to not only find out who killed him, which would have been, like, Sinestro or something like that, if you ever watched the movie. But, yeah, I was like, just do Lethal Weapon. It's perfect. Not just because of the colors of the gentlemen involved, but also because that's a tone that people can kind of wrap their head around. It fits a more serious tone that the Warner Brothers people are going for these days, or I guess now they're trying to recreate Guardians of the Galaxy tonally, but but at the time they were going for dark and serious Chris Nolan stuff. So yeah, I think it would have been a great movie. And who knows, maybe they won't fuck it up, but I still think
I doubt it.
Yeah. But anyway. So is there anything else you wanted to talk about? We've been going at it for about an hour.
No, not especially. I mean, it's thank you for having me on, and I think it's always good. But, what I like is the loose nature of it. I think we've gone from talking about gay people and going to gay clubs to some would refer to as gay superhero films. So I think it's quite a tangent we've gone on. But no, thank you very much for having me on, and happy World Podcast Day. I didn't get you a card. I didn't realise, so I apologise. Oh,
I just found out about it like Sunday. You were in the air when I found out about this. So yeah, if you're out there listening, go check out the DisAfterDark Network. Y'all have DisAfterDark, Universal After Dark. Everybody's got one. Strike is technically a.
Yep, Strike is part of that family as well. I don't do that, but one of our pools does that, and Craig does that show as well with another colleague. So that's all about the Marvel, mainly the Marvel universe. They talk about DC as well. I think they just reviewed, or they're reviewing Inhumans, because they went to see the IMAX release of that.
Why?
Although I believe, well, that's what the review's for. I think, am I right in thinking that starts tomorrow? Well, by the time this episode goes out, that would have just started on ABC.
I'll be honest with you, I haven't kept up with it. I saw the trailer. I knew what they were doing, and I was like, I'm not. And then when they announced they were going to charge people to see it in theaters, I was like, you're out of your mind.
On top of that as well, it was a reduced version, so the TV version will be longer than the IMAX version.
I hadn't even heard that, but whatever. Yeah.
Apparently, the rumor is it's been cancelled already.
Yeah, I saw that, and I mean, anybody could have predicted that. It was it was never going to do well, and whatever. But yeah, I don't know when it's coming out, but it is relatively soon. It might be this weekend.
Yeah.
So,
well, don't watch it, kids.
But do go listen to the DisAfterDark Network if you and if you're not big on theme park podcasts, they do have y'all only do it monthly, but everybody's got one, which features the aforementioned Lee Malaby. I've listened to most of the episodes. I didn't make it through the episode, ironically, talking about what we've been talking about for the last 30 minutes. There is one dedicated to Batman vs Superman, and then I haven't listened to the Bill and Ted episode. But
yeah, I mean, to be honest, the latest episode, we and I suppose it's similar for you. We pay for a certain amount of bandwidth every month, and we hadn't been using it.
Right. So
we recorded the Bill and Ted show from Halloween Horror Nights this year and put that out as this month's episode. But me, Lee, and Craig, I think, are getting together next week for October's episode. So you won't have to wait long for a normal one. And there's Craig's come up with a few themes for upcoming shows. So they're going to get quite random, but they should be fun. So yeah, if I haven't bored you too much, please give some of that stuff a listen. Yeah. And thank you for having me on. As I said, really appreciate it and enjoyed myself, so thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on. So
cheers.
So this has been the Metal Hand of God. Shout out to our network, the Fakakta Comedy Funhouse Network. Go check all those out. Shout out to PM Star Promotions. If you're looking to get like stickers and band gear and stuff like that. But all the commercials are on this episode anyway. And thank you, Nick. And what's our sign off for this one? Keep it metal, yeah. That was Rockin' Steve again. He says keep it metal.
Are you looking to get custom merch for your band? PM Star Promotions is producing all types of promotional items such as shirts, hats, stickers, banners, koozies, skate decks, and much, much more. All products are imprinted in the USA and made to last while keeping your cost as low as possible. Need a shirt design or logo made? The PM Star team has over 20 years experience in graphic design to make your ideas come to life. PM Star Promotions is making their way by working alongside with national bands and record labels including Crowbar, Goat Whore, and Ripple Music. To get customized, dependable work or check out the package deals that fit your budget and other exciting offers, please check out our featured collection on Facebook, PM Star Promotions, or visit www.pmstarpromo.com. It's time to get noticed.
So metal that we speaking your refrain. That our story got a